Hi there, this is Tony from pianotone.ca, and this is my review on the Donner SE-1 stage piano. Before I get started, I do have to mention that I did not buy this digital piano. Donner asked me if I'd like to review the SE-1, and when I said yes, they were super nice and sent me one. But I will be giving you my honest opinion on the SE-1 in this review, so let's check it out. So just to give you a quick summary right out of the gate, the Donner SE-1 stage piano is an entry-level, super versatile piano, and it's pretty packed with a lot of features for a pretty low price. So it is a really good value. It would be a great choice for a beginner or for somebody who's looking for a versatile, budget-friendly piano. So to get into the details, key action. The SE-1 has 88 full-size, fully weighted, and graded hammer action keys. So the keys on the left side of the piano feel heavier, and as you move up to the right side and the higher notes, the action gets lighter, just like on an acoustic piano. A lot of the competition in the SE-1's price range, like the Alesis Recital Pro, will have fully weighted but not graded keys, so the SE-1's action is going to be more realistic. There's a slight matte finish on the black keys and 4 layers of touch sensitivity. Well, it's 3 layers and then off. When compared to actions on other digital pianos, the SE-1's action is on the light side, which is the kind of action I prefer. My favorite two actions ever are the Yamaha GHS action and the Casio Smart Scaled Hammer action, which are both also lighter actions. While the key action on the SE-1 doesn't feel as premium as those more expensive actions, it does provide a similar feel and kind of a familiar playing experience. So I find it pretty easy to transition back and forth between the GHS action on my Yamaha DGX 670 and the action on the SE-1. And when you compare the key bed on the Donner SE-1 to actions that are in its price range, it feels as good or as better than any that I've tested. I used to own an Alesis Recital Pro, and the Donner SE-1's action definitely feels more premium than the Alesis. The Alesis keys had a lot of kind of side-to-side looseness and movement, so if you did a glissando on the keys, they would actually whack into each other and make a lot of noise. If I do a glissando on the SE-1, you're just going to hear the keys going up and down. You're not going to hear them banging into each other because it doesn't have that issue with side-to-side play and looseness. Now keep in mind that I prefer lighter actions. Classical and more advanced pianists often prefer heavier actions and might find this action too light. But piano action preferences are totally personal, and there's no right or wrong. It's just what you happen to like. So if you like light actions like I do, you'll probably enjoy the action on the SE-1. If you're a beginner and you don't know what kind of action you're going to like yet, a lighter action isn't a bad place to start with getting yourself used to weighted keys. And at this price, a fully weighted and graded hammer action is not easy to find. Okay, voices. The Donner SE-1 has 200 voices. As far as keyboard-centric voices, which are the ones I really care about, there's about 20 or 30. There's 4 pianos, 2 electric pianos, 5 organs, and a few string and pad options for layering. There's actually a couple more piano voices further down the voice list, but those ones sound to me like much older, simpler samples that really aren't worth considering. If you're interested in non-keyboard-centric voices like horns, guitars, world instruments, or even sound effects, then there are some of those there for you to test out. So how is the quality of those 20 or 30 voices that I would likely use? Most of them are pretty good, especially for the price. Donner uses sound samples from a company in France called Dream that's been making instrument samples since the 1980s. While I do wish that they could have left out some of the voices like sound effects and included a few more piano voice options, the SE-1 does meet my basic piano needs because it's got 2 pretty good piano voices that I would use. It has a nicely sampled and kind of woody grand piano voice, so good for ballads, pop songs, slow jazz, blues, kind of general use. And it's also got a brighter piano voice, which is going to cut through a mix better. So I would use that for faster rock and blues songs. Now, while these samples don't include any of the high-end velocity-triggered processing that you're going to find on much more expensive pianos like Yamaha's Virtual Resonance Modeling or Roland's Supernatural Sound Engine, they are both good basic samples, and for the price, they're very good. I definitely prefer the main piano voice on the SE-1 to the Alesis Recital Pro's main piano voice. The other 2 piano voices are a honky-tonk piano, which is okay, and then there's a MIDI grand that I actually wasn't very impressed with, but I don't tend to use those voices anyways. They also have the basic electric pianos covered with a Rhodes patch and what I think is a Wurlitzer patch, and the organ section even includes a Hammond organ sample, which is one of my favorite voices on the keyboard, and a voice you don't often see on the competition. I do wish the Rhodes had a bit more bark in the lower end register, but that is often what's missing on a Rhodes patch on a less expensive instrument. And the electric pianos can be enhanced quite a bit actually with the available chorus effects. I'll demo that in the effects section. For layering voices, there are some good options available from the string and pad voices that the piano has. And a very welcome feature included on the SE-1 is that you can edit the relative volumes of layered voices. This is not often found on a piano in this price range, and it's a very nice feature to have because strings and pads can often really overpower the main piano voice. Now, as far as splits go, while you can split the keyboard into two different halves and two different voices, both sides are in the same octave range. So this isn't really usable for creating a bass piano left-hand, right-hand split. It's really meant to be a teaching mode, to have a teacher sit beside you, and you both have the same octave range. It's kind of strange, actually, that Donner enabled two different voices with this feature. Hopefully, future versions of the SE-1 will allow both this teacher mode with identical voices on both sides and the octaves being the same, as well as a normal split mode that isn't octave shifted with two different voices on each side. Here's a video on the main voices on the Donner SE-1, and I'll also include some samples of layered voice combinations. So, my overall thoughts on these voices, for me, the important voice categories are covered, and these voices are totally fine. I'm actually hoping to rent a Yamaha P45 so that I can do a comparison video. I'm very curious myself to see how the Donner SE-1 stands up against Yamaha's entry-level piano, especially since the P45 has been around for a long time now, so I'm curious to do a voice comparison. Okay, the user interface. I have to say that the user interface on the Donner SE-1 is really impressive, especially for an entry-level digital piano at such a low price. It actually provides a better user experience than almost all entry to mid-level digital pianos, including some that are far more expensive. There's a small display in the center. It's not high resolution or anything, but it displays some basic and super helpful information. The current voice or rhythm, current tempo, and there's visual indicators for whether reverb, chorus, splits, or layers are turned on or not. Settings you can easily navigate to and modify using the screen include rhythm, volume, transpose, if you want to transpose keys, touch sensitivity, the balance between the layered voices, the split point, and the reverb and chorus levels, as well as the metronome's time signature. The SE-1 is equipped with a volume knob instead of some of the kind of annoying volume sliders or up and down volume buttons that you find on some more expensive pianos. It also has a lot of convenient direct access buttons, including the usual ones for controlling your rhythms and accompaniment, as well as turning on the metronome or adjusting the tempo, playing built-in songs, making a quick single-track recording, and some very handy buttons on the right-hand side for controlling the playback of audio files from either your flash drive or from a device connected with Bluetooth. Note that the playback buttons will only work on the flash drive or with a recognized music app on your device. Now, while there are some features that require function key combinations, those keys are clearly labeled, so that's fine. If you look at the labels over the keys, you'll see a few labeled with what they do in conjunction with the function button. My rather intense dislike for needing to use function key combinations on a keyboard is lessened considerably with a couple of things Donners did that are very cool. First of all is that they labeled those keys clearly. Some other pianos do this. In my opinion, if a manufacturer is going to use key combinations, they should always be labeled. And you don't have to hold the function button down. It works like a toggle switch. You just press function, it lights up, and then now you can go and make as many function key combination changes as you want, and then press it again to exit the function mode. Very cool. The numeric labels on the left-hand side allow you to quickly jump to a tone or a rhythm as opposed to having to scroll through the data buttons on the menu. So you'd press function and then type in the number, assuming you know the number for the voice you want. The labeled keys on the right side are for easily toggling reverb, chorus, layers, or splits on and off. And you can also turn on manual percussion, where you can play drums with the keys. The buttons in the middle that are numbered with M and R, 0 to 3, those are for saving and recalling registrations. I'm going to talk about that in the registrations section of the review. So with this many dedicated buttons, a menu screen, and only a few function key combinations that are all clearly labeled, really does make this user interface not only fantastic for the price, but it's actually a much better user experience than you'll find on quite a few extremely popular and highly regarded digital pianos that sell for twice as much or more than the SE-1. pianos like the Roland FP30X and Casio PXS1100 may have higher quality action and voices, but they both have far worse user interfaces. Both of these pianos require you to use function key combinations for almost all of the functionality, including even selecting voices. I actually owned but then sold both a Roland FP30 and a Casio PXS1100 because the lack of a decent user interface just became too frustrating. Okay, for effects, the Donner SE-1 has 8 levels of reverb and chorus, and they can both be disabled if you choose. You can edit the reverb and chorus levels from 1 to 8 using the menu screen and buttons, and then to toggle reverb or chorus on or off, you press the function button and then use the labeled keys. Super easy. For both reverb and chorus, I'll demo a few voices with each effect off, then at the middle level, and then maxed out, so you can try and listen for the differences. Okay, connectivity. The Donner SE-1 has a very impressive set of connectivity features, including a very useful stage piano feature that you pretty much never see on entry-level to mid-level digital pianos anymore. On the front, there are two quarter-inch headphone ports. Thanks to Donner for putting those on the front instead of on the back. But a huge shout out to Donner for including a set of basic studio headphones with the SE-1. Many beginners don't realize that most general use home headphones that you buy at an electronics store really aren't appropriate for keyboards or digital pianos. Most of those headphones come with a built-in mic and often modify the sound with things like bass boost, both of which can significantly take away from how good your piano sounds in your headphones. And I have to admit, I wasn't expecting much from a pair of included headphones, but I really was surprised. These headphones are actually not bad at all, and while they aren't as detailed as my main AKG92 studio headphones, they're totally on par with the entry-level studio headphones like the Tascam TH02s that I first started with. So thanks again, Donner. That's an awesome thing to have included. Okay, so also on the front is a USB flash drive port for playing back MP3 or WAV files to play along with. And there are even buttons on the piano on the right-hand side to control these tracks. There's a play, pause, fast forward, and rewind. The only issue with this feature is that you can't see the name of your current track or the next one on the menu. And also, once you start playback, when it finishes one track, it will automatically start the next one. So this is going to be a useful feature for practicing, but this isn't a realistic option for streaming and backing tracks for a performance. Okay, on the back, there's a USB to host port that allows you to use the piano as a MIDI controller and transmit MIDI data to a device. So you can either record MIDI in a DAW or interact with MIDI-compatible learning apps, that type of thing. There's also MIDI DIN in and out ports. This is the feature I was talking about that has pretty much disappeared off most digital pianos and keyboards in the last few years. While it's a feature I'm unlikely to ever use, there are many performers who will love to have this available. This will basically allow you to connect the Donner SE-1 to another keyboard or sound module and trigger that equipment's sounds using the Donner's fully weighted keys. Or you could also connect another keyboard into the Donner and use it to trigger the Donner sounds. There's a single pedal input that will accept either the included sustain pedal, and thanks to Donner for including a good quality, decent sustain pedal instead of the cheap brick switch pedals that you often get with entry-level digital pianos. And that port will also accept the triple pedal unit that is built into the custom stand for the SE-1. There's also a 1/4 inch audio output for connecting the SE-1 to external audio equipment, like an audio interface for recording or to external amplification, mixers, that type of thing. There's a 1/4 inch auxiliary in to stream audio into the keyboard so you can connect a device and play along with YouTube or stream in backing tracks. And there's also Bluetooth audio in, which is another option for streaming external audio into the SE-1. There is, however, a minor issue that I noticed with both the audio in port and the Bluetooth audio in, and that is that both of those have a pretty low input volume. I originally noticed this on some of my backing tracks, which are WAV files, that I was streaming through either the audio in jack or Bluetooth from my iPad. But when I just streamed music from YouTube, my music player, or directly from the Jam Zone app, the incoming volume was a bit higher and was usable. So that tells me I might need to try find a way to boost the source track volumes on my backing tracks. But all that being said, though, I do think the SE-1 could still benefit in a big way by adding a gain knob or volume control within the menu to just boost the incoming volumes a bit more. I should also mention in Donner's defense that these issues are not unique to Donner. Many of the Casio keyboards and pianos I've tested have issues like this as well. On my Casio Tone CTS-1, if I turn up the audio in volume enough to match the keyboard volume, then it distorts. Rhythms and accompaniment. The Donner SE-1 has 100 rhythms from various genres available with optional accompaniment. There are 2 variations of each rhythm, and there's also an intro and an outro available for each, as well as a sync start function to start the rhythm when you start playing. If you've enabled the accompaniment, you can trigger major chords with just a single finger in your left hand, which is great if you're just getting started on playing and you're learning how to play lead sheets or something. But if you're a more experienced player, then you can use full fingered chords in your left hand instead. Or if you want to just practice with a drum beat, then you can disable the accompaniment, which is what I tend to do. So how good are the accompaniment features on the Donner SE-1? I would rate the usability and the interface for using the rhythms and accompaniment to be above average, especially for a digital piano. As far as the quality of the accompaniment programming and the sounds, I wouldn't put them in the same class as those from the bigger manufacturers, but for the price, they're perfectly fine and they're awesome to have. I did notice another volume issue, however, on some of the rhythms, not all of them. The volume is just way too low relative to the piano volume. While you can adjust the rhythm volume in the menu, it is actually already set to the max of 127 by default, so that setting isn't going to be of much help. So between the volume issues and the accompaniment programming, I don't think you'd want to use the accompaniment for a performance, but they are fun to use, especially for beginners learning how to play along with lead sheets. And for piano practicing, rhythms alone are super handy. I always recommend practicing non-classical music with drums instead of a metronome. They will still keep you in time, but there's a feel that is really important for a new player to get used to. Here's a quick video on the rhythms and accompaniment. Okay, for rhythms and accompaniment, I'm not going to spend too much time here because it is pretty straightforward. So for example, I'm going to choose a rhythm here. So I'm going to go to number 42. Which is rock number 4. And I'm going to turn on, I want to have an intro. It's going to start on variation A. I'm going to turn on accompaniment. And then I'm going to hold down start so that it's flashing now, and that means it's sync start. If I had just hit start, it just would have started playing. So now I'm just going to finger some chords here, and let's check this out. There's your intro. And I can switch to the other variation. And then I can throw in an ending. pretty straightforward and pretty standard arranger stuff. So I'm just going to try one more. I'm going to go to rhythm number 22. Which is a ballad rhythm. And I'm just going to go ahead and go sync start this time without an intro. So what do I tend to use this for? Pretty much just for practice, and I just use I don't use the accompaniment, I just use the rhythm. So I've selected rhythm that I use for practicing slow blues with, and I've set the tempo to what I want it for. So I'll throw an intro on here, and this is just pretty much what I do to use the rhythms for practice. Etc. So you get the idea. And I also like to use this number 33 boogie one to practice some slightly faster blues as well. So again, you get the idea. Great for practice. Okay, registration memory. The Donner SE-1 has 4 registration memory slots where you can save voice and rhythm settings for quick and easy recall. While only 4 pales in comparison to arranger keyboards that have 9, 32, or even more, for an entry-level digital piano, any registrations are welcome to have. To save a registration, you set up everything the way that you want it, then you press function to go into the function mode, and while it's still lit, you just press any of the M keys, M0, 1, 2, or 3, and then it saves your registration. And to recall a registration, you just press function again, and then press the appropriate corresponding R key, so recall. So R0, R1, R2, or R3, and then all your settings will be restored. Super handy. Speakers. The Donner SE-1 has 15 watts of speaker power per side for a total of 30 watts. This is a pretty impressive wattage total. Much more expensive digital pianos from the major brands quite often have much less. For example, the Yamaha P45 only has a total of 12 watts. But how do they sound? Not bad at all. As is the case with many portable pianos, they are a bit on the bright side, but they are nice and clear. Compared to the Alesis Recital Pro I used to own, the speakers on the Donner are definitely quite a bit clearer. For performing in anything other than a very intimate setting, though, you will definitely want some external amplification. And the fact that the Donner SE-1 has a line output means that you can do that without disabling the onboard speakers. So you will still have those available as monitors, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to testing out the Donner SE-1 with my Bose S1 battery-powered PA. Here's a quick sample of the speakers as picked up just by my iPhone's built-in mic. So other features, there's a metronome, which you can configure not only for tempo, but you can also edit the time signature in the menu. There's a basic single track recorder that's really only intended for playback, not for exporting a sound file or MIDI data or anything. But it is very handy if you want to quickly capture something that you're working on and you don't want to bother hooking up any devices. You can easily transpose keys up and down, which is great for beginners like myself. And there's 60 demo songs included on the SE-1 that you can listen to and play along with. So other choices, the Donner SE-1 at about $500 at the time of this video versus the Alesis Recital Pro at about $380 US at the time of this video. The Alesis Recital Pro is still a good option for an entry-level fully weighted digital piano, and while it is $120 cheaper than the SE-1, you've got to keep in mind the following. The SE-1 has fully weighted graded hammer action keys, while the Recital keys are fully weighted but not graded. And on top of that, I prefer the feel of the key action on the Donner. The Alesis action is okay, but it's a bit less responsive than the SE-1. It kind of feels a bit mushier. The SE-1 includes a sustain pedal, and a good one. The Recital doesn't come with a sustain pedal at all, not even a cheap brick switch. And the SE-1 can also be used with an optional triple pedal unit. The SE-1 also includes that set of basic studio headphones, which is awesome. The SE-1 has 200 voices versus 12, or even just the 20 or 30 keyboard-centric voices versus 12 that you find on the Recital Pro. And it's also got rhythms and optional accompaniment to practice with, and that's big for me. I always practice with rhythms. As far as the voice quality goes, they're comparable. They both have good and totally usable piano, electric piano, organ, and string voices. The SE-1 has 30 watts of speaker power compared to 20 on the Alesis. And the SE-1 has multiple audio in options, including Bluetooth and the audio in on the back. And the Alesis has no audio in options. The only feature that the Alesis has that the Donner does not is the Alesis Recital Pro can be battery powered. In my opinion, the extra $120 is a small price to pay for all of those extra features if your budget can afford it. I would definitely recommend the Donner SE-1 over the Alesis Recital Pro. Keep in mind with the Alesis that a sustain pedal and a set of basic studio headphones alone is going to cost you close to $100 anyways. The Donner SE-1 versus the Yamaha P45 or P71 as it is on Amazon. The Yamaha is about $50 more than the Donner. In comparing the Donner SE-1 to the Yamaha P45, the SE-1 completely outshines the P45 in pretty much every area, except one, and it is a big one. There's 200 voices, or 20 or 30, versus 10. Far better connectivity, the P45 has no line out port, no audio in option at all, and only one headphone port. There's a far better user interface. The P45 has no screen and only a volume control. All the functions, including selecting voices, have to be done with function key combinations. The SE-1 has rhythms and accompaniment. The P45 only has a metronome. It's more speaker power, 30 watts versus 12. And it also comes with a higher quality sustain pedal and basic studio headphones. The P45 comes with a basic brick switch pedal. And the SE-1 is compatible with the triple pedal unit built into the optional stand. You can't use a triple pedal unit with the P45. So what is the big advantage that the P45 has? It's the GHS action. Yamaha's GHS action on the P45 is my all-time favorite action, and while the SE-1's action does have a similar feel, the tried and true GHS from Yamaha is definitely more premium. Other than that, the only possible advantages of the P45 would be the Yamaha name for resale down the road. As far as the voices are concerned, I'd really like to do a side-by-side comparison of these. The P45 was released quite a few years ago, so I wouldn't be surprised if the SE-1's main piano voice was comparable. So as far as my needs go, the P45 is just far too thin on features. I would personally opt for the Donner. Even though the P45 has my favorite GHS action, the Donner's action isn't bad, and the P45's lack of a good user interface, line-out ports, audio imports, and rhythms for piano practicing just makes the Donner a better choice for me. The only use case in which I would recommend the P45 over the Donner would be if all you cared about was just playing piano, most likely focusing on classical pieces, so you really wanted the higher quality action and you don't care about losing all those other features. The Donner SE-1 at $500 versus the Donner DEP-20 at $400. The DEP-20 is Donner's entry-level fully weighted digital piano, super popular on online, sells for about $100 or so less than the SE-1. I haven't had a chance to review this piano, so I can't comment on it directly, but having reviewed the SE-1 in depth, I think I can make a few useful comments. The sounds might be similar since they also come from the Dream sound source, but looking at the voice list, there's 238 voices on the DEP20 versus the SE-1's 200. This is definitely a different sound set, so there's a good chance that the sounds on the SE-1 might be a bit better quality, but some big differences definitely do stand out. The biggest one is that the keys on the DEP20 are, like the Alesis Recital Pro, are fully weighted, but they're not graded, so the action on the SE-1 is going to feel more like an acoustic piano. Size. While the weight is still fine at 25.5 pounds, the DEP20 is massively thick at almost 9 inches. I've never seen a digital piano that thick. And that can affect how it sits on your piano stand. You cannot adjust the relative volumes of the layered voices, and there are no registrations or quick access to voices or rhythms. The only way to select them is by scrolling. There's no Bluetooth on the DEP20, and it also doesn't include the basic studio headphones. So even without having tried one of these, it is clearly more of a budget option and more comparable to the Alesis Recital Pro. The Donner SE-1, in my opinion, is a far better choice than the DEP20. The verdict. So to sum up, what is my verdict on the Donner SE-1 stage piano? I like this piano. It provides a pretty massive feature set for very little money, and it's super versatile. As a budget-friendly entry-level home piano, you can use it as a home piano, buy it with the optional wooden stand if you like that comes with a built-in triple pedal unit, only for a few extra dollars. And it has all the features and connectivity that you need for practicing, like audio in options for backing tracks or lessons, as well as built-in rhythms to practice with. As a budget-friendly stage piano, even if you do buy the wooden stand for home, it detaches quickly and easily from that, and still includes the portable sustain pedal. So with the lightweight, you can easily take it out to perform or take it to a friend's place for band practice, etc. So if you want to check out current prices from Amazon or directly from Donner in your area for the Donner SE-1 stage piano, with or without the stand, then please check out the affiliate links below. Thanks so much, and happy piano playing and happy piano shopping. Have an awesome day.